Well, good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the Home Weather Office on this Saturday morning. It is now the 27th day of July, 2024. This is the morning briefing. I wanted to come on this morning to give you an update on the fire situation, as well as the weather, the big change we've had in the weather, a much cooler start, and we are going to see cooler temperatures as we go through the rest of the day. Now, in terms of the fire, we've seen a really interesting development here in the last 12 hours or so. After a really vigorous growth in the fire yesterday, the last estimate I saw is now 307,000 acres. We should see slower progress on the fire during the day today. So a lot going on here with the satellite. First, we have the marine layer getting pushed inland, so many areas along Interstate 80 through, let's say, Davis and Dixon, as well as Sacramento County, getting a bit of that marine layer this morning. That'll be burning off. But look at the smoke. Now, it's really interesting. Over the last couple of days, the smoke has been getting vented well off to the north and to the east. But we have this little low that's moving in that I'll show you in just a second here. And what that has done is, with the low circulating like this, and that low is also happening to drag in that cool delta breeze, it is also, the circulation has brought the smoke down into the valley. So many of you, in especially Colusa County and probably parts of Yolo County, are likely seeing some of that smoke, and quite a bit of smoke down toward the Grass Valley area as well. Now, it's generally elevated, and so for that, let me go to the air quality. So this is from Purple Air. And as you can see, on the east side of the valley, there are some areas like around Roseville and Rockland that have some elevated particulate matter. But for the most part, it really isn't all that bad until you get farther to the north, and it'll take a while for these sectors to come on. And you can see up here where the fire really is going. The thickest smoke is to the north. And so it doesn't look as though, even though we are seeing some smoke come down the west side of the valley, we aren't seeing much of it down on the ground. So what we're seeing here is generally elevated smoke. So that's good news. I mean, it's certainly shading the sun in many areas, especially north of Marysville, north of Highway 20 this morning. But right now, anyway, it doesn't appear to be impacting air quality all that much. Now, I mentioned that all of that is because of this little low, and what I'm looking at here is the flow around 10,000 feet. And here is the low circulating around. And as we go through the day today, that circulation will gradually weaken. And I know it's kind of tough to pick out here, but we have this little trough moving in. And if you look at these wind arrows here, these are coming down from the north, and the winds on the west slope of the Sierra are from the west and southwest. So we still have a little bit of a circulation here. But the good news here is, in the areas around the fire, we are not seeing the strong south and southwesterly winds that we saw yesterday. And even though these are winds up around 10,000 feet, the winds up around 10,000 feet help to vent the fire, if you will. It's kind of like making sure your chimney is well vented. So if you look at the winds up around 10,000 feet and higher, if those are blowing strong, you can get some really strong growth on a fire, even with somewhat lighter winds down at the surface. That wind will stay light as we go through the next couple of days, but then as we head into the day Sunday, it turns more into a steady southwesterly wind. Not all that strong, but we will see, with that warming trend we're expecting, we'll get back into more of that southwesterly flow. This is into the day on Monday. And again, these are winds up around 10,000 feet. So while we could see a bit of a break in fire activity today, it will likely be back into more favorable conditions for fire growth by the time we get into the day on Monday. So we'll have to see just how much progress firefighters can make during the day today and during the day tomorrow. So let's go to watch duty. And as I said, from them, let me just show you. This is as of the last estimate, 307,000 acres. Oh, something else I want to point out is this 0% containment. I saw some people yesterday commenting that that it had gone from 3% containment down to 0% containment. That's a matter of math. So consider this. Containment is the percentage of the line, if you will. So let's say there's a circle around the fire. So the percentage of that line that they feel is secure. So a couple of days ago, the fire was this big, let's say. Well, now it's this big. It's the difference when the fire is let's say 40,000 acres to 300,000 acres. So it doesn't mean that they lost containment on that segment, if you will. It just means that percentage-wise, that instead of being 3% of the line, it's roughly 0% of the line. So if you saw that and were alarmed that they lost containment, that it went from 3% to 0%, now it's a matter of math. Let's go back to the fire perimeter, and the other thing that I wish I could point out a little bit more clearly, but for those of you in the Chico area, this line has not moved. And while they have not declared that this part of the fire is contained, this part of the fire is not moving. So you're just not seeing any growth on this part of the fire or on this part of the fire down here either. Where we did see huge growth during the day yesterday was to the north, and this continues to be a problem. The fire made rapid progress yesterday. This is Highway 36. It crossed Highway 36, as you can see here, and will continue to move to the north over the next couple of days. It's heading into the same sort of terrain as well as the same sort of vegetation. It's this mixed grass, rolling terrain with various vegetation, but a lot of grass in here, but the wind will continue to be steady out of the south, continuing the forward motion, even though the wind will not be as strong as yesterday. But now this is starting to impact areas into Shasta County. We will likely be seeing some evacuation orders and warnings if they're not up already for parts of Shasta County. So if you come farther to the south along this fire, I talked about yesterday how yesterday is going to be a critical day here along Highway 32, and it does look as though they were able to hold 32. So let me just move this over a little bit. So here's Highway 32, and as you can see, that red line right there really doesn't get across Highway 32, which means that, let me go to the Google Maps over here. So let's just get back in here to where the fire was burning along Highway 32 right here. So we were concerned yesterday that it could slop over this ridge and get into the next creek over, going from Big Chico Creek to Little Chico Creek, and it doesn't look as though that has happened. So that's good news for those of you in Paradise. Yeah, I know Paradise is still under an evacuation warning, Paradise being over here. And we're not seeing any progress that way in the fire. So as long as the fire stays on this side of Highway 32, we're going to be in good shape. Let me back this out a little bit more. So where is the fire heading? It has already gone past the Cohasset area and will likely continue to burn in this direction. And this is, it's already gone past Campbellville. And if I keep zooming out, you'll see Highway 32 up here. And then this is Mount Lassen right here. So here's Highway 36 rather, 32, 36. So it's going to continue to burn in this area here, basically the foothills of Mount Lassen. There isn't a lot of population out here. There is forest property in here. You can see the clear cuts. Whether or not they're going to be able to hold any of these lines. You see this line right here? That's an area that they've tried to prep, if you will. So they thin it out. There are forest roads in here. So an area like this, they try to thin out a little bit along Yellow Jacket Road. So if you were driving along Yellow Jacket Road, you'd see these areas where the vegetation is very thin on either side of the road. And that's where they try to prep for a case like this. But whether or not something like that can hold in a fire that's burning this hot remains to be seen. As I mentioned, it did hop Highway 36 here to the north, and will be continuing to head off to the north. So here's Highway 36. So the fire is now into here. Whether or not we get all the way up toward Shingletown and Highway 44 or not remains to be seen. But these areas are certainly in the path. Eventually, let me go back to watch duty again and widen that a little bit, because eventually many areas farther to the north and to the east will be protected by this area right in here. Here's Chester, here's Lake Almanor, these areas burned in the Dixie Fire. So the fire line is here. There won't be a lot of progress if it does reach the Dixie Fire. So that means that areas like Chester and Lake Almanor will be in better shape because of the recent Dixie Fire. But farther to the north, we could see more progress all the way up toward Highway 44. As you can see, Shingletown is now in an evacuation order, these areas south of Highway 44. So a really interesting morning here with the smoke certainly in a different direction, laying down a little bit. My guess is, and again, keep in mind, I have no idea what's going on the fire lines. My guess is that this morning the fire is laying down quite a bit more than what we've seen the last couple of mornings, and perhaps we won't see as much explosive growth as what we saw yesterday, with it going up to the 300,000 acres, 307 I think was what the number was. Now, a little bit of context on that 300,000 acres. The last 2 years, the total for the year for the state has been around 350,000 acres. We've had, the last couple of years we've been very, very lucky in terms of the amount of acreage burned. So this one fire, it's bigger than Caldor was. Caldor was like 220, something like that. So it's bigger than Caldor was. And this fire alone could eclipse, and likely will eclipse, the totals that we've had for the last 2 years. That gives you an idea of just how much territory this fire is burning up. And as many of you already know, that this fire was started intentionally. Somebody's been arrested in that, pushing a car off down a ravine, a car that was on fire. Somebody's been arrested for that, and we'll see whether or not they're prosecuted, etc. We'll see how that goes. And many people quite often ask about, last year we had, let's say, 350,000 acres burn, and what differentiates a good fire year like last year from a bad fire year like we had a few years ago when we had 4 million acres burn? Well, the difference is two differences. One is weather. A wet spring, a cool summer can certainly play into that. And this year we had a nice wet winter, but then this last month being, July is going to come in as the hottest month we've ever seen, with Sacramento seeing 21 days over 100 degrees. We've never seen that. So that dries all the fuels out, so the fuels are really dry. But there's the other element in it, and that's luck. If you don't get fires started, you're not going to get fires going, regardless of what the weather is going to do. So yeah, this fire was started intentionally. And keep in mind that roughly 90% of fires are started by humans, whether it's somebody dragging a chain behind a truck and doing it inadvertently, somebody, shooting range or something like that. All sorts of accidents can happen. And then you have people doing stupid things that do start fires like this one. So those are two elements that can make or break a fire season. One is the weather, and one is human activity. So that's everything I've got for you on this Saturday morning. Like I said, keep your fingers crossed that maybe you will see the fire lay down a little bit more today. We shouldn't see as much progress on the fire, and maybe the firefighters can put in some lines to help to slow its progress once the winds do change direction again and get back into a more growth-oriented wind direction by the time we get into the day on Monday. In the meantime, that's everything I've got for you on this Saturday morning. Make it a great day. Enjoy the cooler temperatures. I'll talk with you later.